The Rolling Stones are celebrating the 50th anniversary of their first live performance. The original band members Mick Jagger, Keith Richards and Brian Jones first played in the Marquee Club in London back in '62. 5 decades on, they're still one of the most popular bands the world has seen. For more, I'm joined now by music commentator Glenn A. Baker. Glenn,
good morning, Joe.
Welcome. These guys are the personification of rock and roll.
The world's greatest rock and roll band. Never was an epithet more perfectly aligned.
Your life has basically coincided with them. Yes. Are you surprised they're still alive and still a unit?
Well, I've seen them up close, and I've got to tell you, yes, I'm surprised. When you actually get really, really close to Keith, you can be surprised that he's still actually up and walking. But as he once said to me, he said, I come from good stock. He said, we're made from stern stuff, us Richards. But yeah, no, they have been a cornerstone, a centrepiece of the whole baby boomer experience. And it's really, really quite extraordinary how resilient, how tough. I mean, that sort of molten rhythm and blues. And that is what is the base of it, Joe. The reason why they've survived 50 years is they weren't an ephemeral pop band. They weren't cashing in on a trend. They were playing tough blues. Brian Jones particularly was a zealot in that regard. They were named after a muddy, like a Muddy Waters song, and they went out. They went on their first American tour saying, "We're a blues band," and that was what it was about.
Why were they such a revelation in the '60s? Is it because everyone else was pretty clean cut?
Yeah,
and
a
they
bit
were
of a yin and yang. The Beatles, the four of them, the neat collarless suit. The four looked actually pretty cuddly. Your parents could cuddle. No parents were ever going to cuddle. They looked differently. They dressed differently. There was a snarl. There was an anger. I think I once coined the phrase. I said, when Mick Jagger looked down the barrel of Ed Sullivan's cameras in 1965 and snarled, "I can't get no satisfaction," Middle America knew this man had come for their daughters and would not leave without them.
Okay, well, he also came to Australia for the daughters of Australian families as well. We might take a bit of a look back now at a clip. This is from '66, from the Bandstand program in Australia.
You feel so good, you have to fly me out of my head. I said, hey, hey, you out of my cloud. Hey, hey.
See there, Glenn, they don't look that raunchy back there when they were in Australia.
A poster of the Stones on a girl's bedroom wall was going to send shivers through the most hardened parents. There were headlines in the British press saying, "Would you allow your daughter to go out with one of these?"
But look, he's got a polo shirt on and slacks.
But I've got to tell you, the Beatles had neat collarless suits.
Right, okay.
But look, the thing about the Stones is there was a certain knowing look about them. I mean, there was something. I mean, apart from Charlie there, who looked but no, I mean, they were schooled in a music that was all about sort of like meat and potatoes, not froth and marshmallow, and it was a strong and a powerful thing. And even a song like Satisfaction or Get Off of My Cloud had a certain anger to it, a certain bite. It was interesting. I was with the Rolling Stones in Johannesburg at Ellis Park on the Voodoo Lounge tour about 15 years ago, and it was a wonderful personal experience because at one point Keith comes up and throws his arm around me and says, "How are you, mate? They're looking after you." And I'm going, here am I, a baby boomer in good standing, and Keith Richards is inquiring about my state of my health. Wow. But anyway, I was speaking to Mick and I just said, look, the 60s, you and the Beatles neck and neck, you're going for it, but then they sort of virtually threw in the towel and you guys just kept on going. And he said, yeah, they would come to us and say, "Oh, it's terrible, the little girls are screaming and no one's paying attention and they're pelting us with jelly babies." He said, and we would say, it doesn't always have to be this way. And he said, so we just kept at it, staged our own tours, surrounded ourselves with our own people, and of course they went out on the road in America 68, 72, 75 and built something that they could play in Copacabana Beach to 1 million people.
Yeah. Did that music change much from the 60s? How did it transform over the decades?
Not a lot. I mean, we're sort of like, Miss You, there was a slight disco beat going on and things like that. But largely the Stones, a bit like our own AC/DC, have always had like a head down talent, but they could always do a pretty impressive ballad. So Angie and Ruby Tuesday and Lady Jane and all throughout actually had another dimension to the Stones. But by and large, when you see them live, and seeing them live is one of the great experiences. It's our birthright. You actually get, it's the riff. And this is a band that are so perfectly adept at turning out the perfect riff. They can literally do it in their sleep. Satisfaction. And Keith confirmed this to me. He wrote it in his sleep. He said he woke up and it was there. He said he had a little tape recorder in a motel room and put it down or hummed it or something. Woke up some hours later and thought he had imagined it. Played it back and went, no, I didn't. And the rest of the band said, nah, it's not very good. It's not very good.
I'm glad you brought that up now. And you've also mentioned Copacabana as well. This was back in 2006. It's been described as the biggest concert ever. There was like 1.5 million people there on Copacabana Beach in Brazil in 2006. We've got a clip from that now, and it is Satisfaction. To have been at Copacabana Beach in 2006. Were you there?
No, I wasn't there, but where I was here in our dear little city of Sydney at the Enmore about 10 years ago when they did one of their theatre shows, and I remember getting right to the lip of the stage, hanging there like a limpet on a rock, and with Jagger sort of like a bottle of water splashing, like a screaming schoolgirl. And it was very interesting, Joe, that they understood, I think, what their prime period is as well. Because I think it's through Beggars Banquet, Let It Bleed, Sticky Fingers, Exile on Main Street, those 4 albums at that time with Mick Taylor, the perfect blues guitarist, when they hit their peak. And interestingly enough, with their fans in the Enmore getting down and dirty, that was where most of their repertoire came from. And I thought, they know it as well. They know, like we know, that that's when the Stones were at their absolute musical peak.
Now, I'd like to get your response to a question that a writer has posed this morning. If they were fat and bald, would we still be talking about them now?
Well, the perfect answer to that is there was a 6 stone, a keyboard player called Ian Stewart, who was fat and bald and was never allowed in the group. I mean, Andrew Loog Oldham, their manager, would let him play on the records and go on the road, but never be in the photos, never be in the group. No, it really did depend on the fact that they were skinny and wiry, and particularly, look, Brian Jones.
I'm glad you brought some props in.
No, but Brian Jones, Brian Jones was like the Beau Brummel of the thing with the blonde hair and the sort of disdainful demeanour and everything. And they were, dare a male say this, they were a sexy band.
Yeah.
And that had a lot to do with it.
But the music was pretty damn good too.
The music was great, but Andrew Loog Oldham, their manager, said the Rolling Stones aren't a band, they're a way of life. And he would even was so arrogant, he would put album covers where they didn't even have the name of the band on the cover. It was just the group, and you looked at it and you went, of course, it's the Stones.
And you've been living that way of life for 50 years as well. Glenn A. Baker, it's been great having you, and always great to talk to you.
Thank you, Joe. Always a pleasure.